Imagine jumping into a dark, freezing pit to save a stranger.
Right.
You land, the mist clears, and you find the corpse of your best friend.
Oh, man, that is just brutal.
Right. The person you've literally sworn to protect. Before you can even process that grief, that corpse stands up, its eyes glowing, and just tries to tear your throat out.
Yeah, the ultimate nightmare scenario.
Exactly. Like, how do you process that level of immediate, visceral grief when you're just sitting around a table rolling dice?
It's intense. It really is.
So today, we are taking a deep dive into an incredible tabletop role-playing session log. The document we are unpacking today is titled DM de Brus's Phandelver and Below Session 6.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic log.
It really is.
Yeah.
And for you listening, our mission today is to trace an evolution. We're going to explore how a group of adventurers transitions from a standard, highly tactical combat scenario into this deeply emotional, high-stakes rescue mission.
Yeah, where the psychological toll completely outweighs the physical one.
Yes. Because what starts as a calculated retreat, using arrows and crowbars, ends in a gut-wrenching lie and a frantic search for a secret exit to save a traumatized family.
It serves as a brilliant case study in interactive storytelling, honestly.
For sure.
We get to see the exact moment where theoretical strategy collides with just messy, unpredictable emotional reality.
Totally.
And what is most compelling is watching how the players themselves are forced to adapt their cognitive load. Like, from managing combat mechanics to managing active trauma.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because starting with the tactical setup, to understand the chaos later, we really need to understand the control they start with.
Right, the baseline.
Yeah. So the party finds themselves on the ground floor of Tresendar Manor. They are facing this encroaching group of local bandits, known as the Redbrands.
Nasty guys.
Very. But the Redbrands are not charging in blindly. They're playing a very cautious waiting game, using cover, waiting for the party to make a mistake.
Which is smart.
Yeah. So the party responds with a clinical, coordinated retreat. Kairon, who is a tiefling rogue, climbs up to a crumbling second-story window.
And just to break down the terminology for a second for you, a tiefling is a character with demonic ancestry.
Right. Often marginalized in this world.
Exactly. And a rogue relies heavily on stealth, mobility, and precision rather than just, brute force.
Right. So Kairon uses that mobility to fire arrows down, essentially pinning the Redbrands in place.
Which creates a window of opportunity for Dain to orchestrate the movement.
Dain being the mountain dwarf fighter.
Yes. Mountain dwarves are culturally and mechanically built for endurance and defensive lines. The log notes Dain has a background in light mountain infantry.
Oh, so he's treating this like a military operation.
Completely. While Kairon provides covering fire and then scrambles down, Dain covers the rear. They back down a set of spiral stairs into a cellar.
And then he does the crowbar thing.
Right. Dain takes a physical crowbar and violently wedges the heavy doors shut behind them to slow the pursuit.
It is textbook SWAT team stuff. They find themselves in a room with a cistern, spot a heavily used secret door on the north wall, and deliberately choose to move through it.
Putting as many barriers as possible between themselves and a numerically superior force.
Yeah, but I'm looking at this log, and I have to push back on their strategy here.
Oh.
Locking yourself in an underground basement, and as we'll see in a minute, a basement filled with traps while an advancing enemy seals the exit behind you. I mean, that seems like a fundamentally terrible tactical trade-off, right?
Well,
You're willingly trapping yourself in a box.
on paper, yeah. Handing over your only known exit to the enemy is a fatal error.
Right.
But if we analyze the mechanics of Dungeon Master, pacing the Dungeon Master being the person running the game and controlling the world, this forced bottlenecking is a deliberate design.
To accelerate momentum.
Exactly. The Dungeon Master's squeezing the players. They cannot hold that crowbar door forever. The Redbrands are already hammering on the wood.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The party has no choice but to push forward into the unknown. They're no longer just fighting bandits. They are fighting the architecture.
The environment itself becomes the antagonist.
Precisely. The cellar, the darkness, the hidden mechanisms. It dictates their survival.
And that antagonist strikes literally immediately.
Yeah, it does.
So Kairon is doing his job as the rogue, scouting ahead down a narrow stone hallway, checking the alcoves for threats. And without warning, the floor simply ceases to exist.
Just gone.
Just gone. He triggers a hidden pit trap. It's 20 feet deep, and the bottom is lined with jagged, unforgiving rocks. He barely manages to catch the edge, left dangling over the abyss by one hand.
Which completely shatters that clinical military precision they had established a minute ago.
Oh, totally.
The noise of the collapsing floor alerts another group of Redbrands in an adjacent room. Instantly, the party is fighting a two-front war.
Right. Dain is forced to hold a doorway against 3 bandits swinging scimitars.
While the rest of the group is desperately trying to clear a 10-foot-wide open chasm.
The physical reality of these characters suddenly becomes a massive liability here. Like Merwynn, the party's wizard, tries to leap across the gap.
But Merwynn is a rock gnome.
Right. He is brilliant, he wields arcane magic, but he's also barely 3 feet tall.
Yeah, his legs simply cannot clear a 10-foot jump.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
He misses the opposite ledge entirely and starts to fall. It requires Threshtog, this massive half-orc barbarian, to physically catch Merwynn midair and haul him up onto the stone.
The SWAT team mindset is just gone.
It is pure desperation.
The transition from control to chaos happens in a matter of seconds. But the true pivot of this entire deep dive isn't the trap itself or the jump.
Right.
It is the discovery at the bottom of the pit.
Right, because while dangling there, Kairon looks down into the gloom and spots a pair of human legs.
Just the leg.
Just the legs, yeah. The rest of the body is obscured by shadow. Threshtog hears this, and, acting on his barbarian instincts, which are driven by raw physical power and protective rage, he doesn't hesitate.
He drops 20 feet straight down into the pit.
Madness.
Well, his assumption, based on the narrative context, is that he is going to find a kidnapped villager from the nearby town of Phandalin.
He thinks he's initiating a rescue.
Exactly.
But he hits the ground, and instantly, a supernatural, freezing mist begins pouring out of the stonework, rising rapidly from his knees to his waist.
Creepy.
So creepy. Merwynn, observing from above, recognizes the magical signature of the cold and screams a warning, undead!
But Threshtog ignores the mist.
Completely. He reaches down, grabs the body, and heaves it over his shoulder to climb out. And as the body slumps over his armor, the mist parts, and he sees the face.
Yeah.
It is Theldendraar.
His closest friend in Phandalin, dead.
And the nightmare doesn't end there. As Threshtog is trying to process the frozen, lifeless face of his best friend, the magic of the room takes hold.
The corpse violently reanimates.
The dead body of Theldendraar becomes a zombie, its jaw unhinging as it tries to bite directly into Threshtog's neck.
Wait, so he climbs down to save a guy, realizes it's his best friend, and then his friend turns into a zombie and tries to eat him?
Yes.
How does a player even process that in the moment?
I have no idea. Luckily, Threshtog's shoulder armor deflects the teeth, but the sheer force tackles him back down into the freezing mist. And then the skeletons begin rising from the dirt around them.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of tabletop storytelling.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, when a player creates a character, they write a backstory. They write down friends, allies, hometowns, usually hoping to anchor their character in the world or just, look cool.
Sure, give them some flavor.
Right. But a masterful dungeon master will take those creative contributions and weaponize them.
Weaponize them. I love that.
The DM took a mechanically standard, mathematically balanced monster encounter, a pit trap with a zombie and a few skeletons, and infused it with the player's own backstory to generate intense psychological horror.
It fundamentally alters the medium, doesn't it? You aren't watching a horror movie where bad things happen to a fictional protagonist on a screen.
No, the horror is happening to a character you built.
Using a relationship you established. It's deeply invasive in the best possible way. Like, Thel isn't just a generic zombie asset spawned into a room. He has a history.
A history that forces Threshtog into an impossible action. Because fighting in zero visibility, surrounded by skeletons, Threshtog is ultimately forced to draw his hand axe and chop down the undead corpse of his best friend just to survive.
It's heartbreaking.
The stakes of the entire session shift in that singular swing of the axe. This is no longer a tactical clearing of a bandit hideout.
It is a violently personal vendetta now.
Exactly.
And you see that shift the moment they haul themselves out of the pit. They pull each other up with ropes, firing magic missiles down into the mist to cover their escape. They collapse onto the stone floor of the upper ledge, their adrenaline totally tapped.
Catching their breath.
Yeah. And in that brief silence, they hear a sound coming from behind a locked wooden door in the corner of the hall. It's the sound of a woman whimpering.
That sound is the catalyst that completely reorients the group's cognitive focus.
Threshtog doesn't pause to formulate a plan. There is no discussion of angles or cover. Fueled by the visceral trauma of what he just had to do to Fel, he hurls his massive frame directly at the solid wood door.
He tries to shatter it with pure rage.
But the lock holds. Kairon has to step in, utilizing his rogue skills to pick the lock under extreme pressure. And the second the mechanism clicks, Threshtog kicks the door open. He takes a crossbow bolt straight to the chest from a guard inside.
And doesn't even flinch.
Doesn't even flinch. He just starts swinging a morning star at anything wearing a Redbrand uniform.
Because the moment the door opens, the reality of the room is laid bare. It is a prison cell block.
And the conditions inside are grim. Huddled in the cells, they find the rest of Thel's family.
A Dendrar family.
Right. His wife, Myrna, has been severely beaten. The teenage daughter, Nilsa, has been subjected to unimaginable trauma and is curled in a corner, completely unresponsive, staring blankly at the wall.
That's awful.
And the young son, Nars, is desperately trying to shield his sister. Threshtog recognizes them the second he breaches the room. He lets out this guttural roar. The log explicitly notes, he screams, "You hurt Thel's family." And the party systematically and ruthlessly liquidates every threat in that room.
The tactical game is dead. The entire framework of how the players are interacting with the world has been replaced by the heavy, suffocating burden of protecting vulnerable non-combatants.
It makes me think of an analogy. Imagine you were in a mosh pit, right?
Okay.
You are throwing elbows, bracing for impact, managing the chaos. Your entire spatial awareness is focused on offensive and defensive strikes. But suddenly, someone hands you a crystal glass filled to the brim with water and tells you that if a single drop spills, you fail.
That is a great way to put it.
Your brain has to instantly rewire. You can't just absorb hits anymore. You have to absorb hits for this fragile entity you are now entirely responsible for. Like an exploration quest suddenly slapping a protect the VIP objective on your screen.
That illustrates the cognitive dissonance perfectly. And we see the party adjust to this new reality with astonishing speed. Njovik perfectly embodies this shift.
Remind me about Njovik.
Njovik is an Aasimar cleric. In this setting, an Aasimar is a being touched by celestial divine power, and a cleric's fundamental purpose is healing and protection. It is practically baked into his DNA.
So the moment the last bandit hits the floor, Njovik drops his weapons.
He doesn't go searching the bodies for loot or checking the perimeter.
Right. He instantly pivots from a frontline combatant to a trauma medic. And what I love about this detail is that he doesn't use flashy, intimidating divine magic.
No.
He approaches Nelsa, the unresponsive, traumatized daughter, slowly, keeping his hands visible. He pulls out a physical healer's kit. He uses mundane bandages, soothing salves, and gentle pressure to ground her.
Yeah, he hands his own water skin to the young boy.
It is a deeply human, incredibly grounded response to the supernatural violence they just survived.
He is treating the psychological shock just as much as the physical wounds. But while Njovik is stabilizing the children, the emotional climax of the session arrives.
Yeah.
Myrna, the battered mother, realizes through her haze that the giant, blood-soaked half-orc standing in the cell is her old friend Threshtog.
She throws her arms around him and breaks down sobbing. Picture this scene. They are deep underground, surrounded by corpses. The sound of reinforcements hammering on the doors down the hall is echoing through the stone, and she is clinging to the man who just saved her children.
And she looks up at him and asks the one question that has to be tearing Threshtog's soul apart.
Have you seen Thel? Tell me Thel is okay.
She even provides the context, sadly. She tells Threshtog, I'm sure they threw him down that pit. We have to go rescue him.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and where I find myself genuinely struggling with the morality of the log.
Let's hear it.
Threshtog knows exactly what is at the bottom of that pit.
Yeah?
He knows the Redbrands threw Thel down there to die. He knows Thel reanimated into a monster, and he knows that the blood currently drying on his hand axe belongs to Myrna's husband.
Yeah.
So Threshtog looks this desperate, grieving widow in the eye, and he completely lies to her.
He does.
He says, there's been no sign of Thel yet. We'll keep looking. When she pushes him, begging him to check the pit, he doubles down. He says, there's nothing in the pit. I've been down there. I've looked.
Yeah.
He even plants a false seed of hope, suggesting maybe he found a way out. Is this a betrayal of trust, or is this the most heroic thing Threshtog does in the entire session?
It is a devastating exchange to read, let alone to roleplay at a table.
I'm having a really hard time justifying Threshtog's choice here.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a massive violation of her autonomy. In any normal scenario, a grieving spouse has the absolute right to know the truth about her husband's fate. She is begging for closure, and he is actively denying it to her, stringing her along with false hope. Doesn't that make the trauma worse when she eventually finds out?
Well, in a normal scenario, safely above ground in a hospital or a living room, yes, transparency is vital.
Okay.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of crisis psychology and active disaster management, the rules of morality shift. You have to consider the immediate triage of the mind.
Triage of the mind.
Yeah, because they are still trapped behind enemy lines. The Redbrands from the upper floors have tracked them down. They can hear the sounds of iron grating and wood splintering as the enemy tries to breach the outer doors. The family is in profound shock.
They need to move immediately.
Exactly. Telling Myrna the horrific truth right then that her husband is not only dead, but was turned into a zombie that Threshtog had to hack to pieces would likely cause a complete psychological collapse.
Oh, she would just break.
It would sever the fragile thread of adrenaline and hope that is keeping her upright. In a survival situation, panic or total catatonia is a death sentence for the entire group.
So the lie was necessary.
By lying, Threshtog is committing a profound act of self-sacrifice. He takes all that unspeakable grief, all that horrific imagery, and places it squarely on his own shoulders so that she doesn't have to carry it.
Wow.
He buys her a synthetic moment of hope, which is the exact cognitive fuel she needs to gather her traumatized children and walk.
He absorbs the poison so she can breathe. I see your point. It is triage. But that is a staggering emotional burden to carry out of that dungeon.
For sure.
And they do still have to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the final act of this session. The frantic, desperate search for an exit route to safely escort this family away.
The pacing here is incredible because the tactical situation is deteriorating by the second. The dungeon master is ratcheting up the pressure. The Redbrands have reached the double doors leading into the crypt where the party is hiding.
Think about how you would react here. You've got an angry militia pounding on a barricaded door, a traumatized family relying on you, and a puzzle door as your only way out. How do you keep your cool? Your adrenaline is crashing from the zombie fight. The tunnel vision is setting in. How do you maintain the cognitive bandwidth to solve problems?
You don't do it alone. You rely on synergistic teamwork. This final sequence perfectly highlights why a diverse party is necessary. No single character class could have engineered this escape.
No, because Kairon, the rogue, realizes the locks won't hold against sheer numbers, so he yells for a barricade.
Right.
Dain, the dwarf fighter, Merwynn, the wizard, and Kairon put their backs against a massive, solid stone sarcophagus sitting in the middle of the crypt.
Which is incredibly heavy.
Insanely heavy.
Yeah.
Using sheer brute force, their boots slipping on the stone floor, they managed to drag this monumental weight across the room, wedging it against the double doors.
The wood is bowing inward under the assault, but the stone holds. It buys them minutes, maybe just seconds.
And while the fighters are spending their physical energy on the barricade, the others are desperately searching the perimeter rooms for a way out that doesn't involve going back through the enemy.
They find a storeroom currently being used as a Redbrand armory.
Which they immediately strip of resources because adventurers are nothing if not pragmatic, right?
Naturally.
Merwynn grabs a short sword with a jeweled pommel. Threshtog, despite carrying the emotional weight of a dead best friend and a massive lie, still has the presence of mind to snag several serviceable weapons and tie 2 expensive silver-inlaid crossbows to his pack.
Gotta the loot.
Always. But the armory is a dead end. Solid stone walls, they are boxed in. The sound of the barricade groaning under the pressure is getting louder.
The players are caught in a vice. But then Njovik the cleric, who, by the way, is currently carrying a stabilized, unconscious Redbrand over his shoulder because his morality demands he take the bandit back to town to face legal justice spots an anomaly.
I love that detail. And yeah, his high perception allows him to notice a faint discrepancy in the stonework on the wall directly across from the armory. A seam that shouldn't be there.
A secret door.
He calls Threshtog over. Threshtog, operating purely on stress and adrenaline, tries to force it. He pushes the stone, he rams his shoulder into it, but nothing moves.
Because it is not a test of strength, it is a puzzle of finesse.
Right.
This is the brilliance of the encounter design. The Dungeon Master is forcing players who are panicked by a brute force assault behind them to focus on a delicate mechanical puzzle in front of them.
It's a cruel shift.
It forces a complete shift in their problem-solving approach. They have to tag out, Threshtog steps back and they call over the rogue.
Kairon runs over from the barricade. While the door is physically buckling behind him, Kairon has to slow his breathing, examine the odd stonework, and solve the mechanical sequence.
Under immense pressure.
He traces the joints, figures out the specific order of pushing the recessed stones, and with a heavy grind, a section of the wall clicks and swings inward.
It is the ultimate release of tension, earned entirely through party cohesion. The fighters bought the time, the cleric spotted the anomaly, and the rogue picked the lock.
The wall opens, revealing a dark path into another completely unknown storeroom. And that is exactly where the Dungeon Master calls it. The session ends right there.
What a place to stop.
On a breathless cliffhanger, staring into the pitch black, with an angry militia hammering against the stone tomb behind them, and a traumatized family waiting for instructions.
It perfectly encapsulates the entire thematic journey of the deep dive. Moving from a position of known, calculated control into the terrifying unknown. Driven not by desire for gold or glory, but by the absolute messy necessity of protecting the vulnerable.
It really is a profound journey to unfold over just a few hours sitting around a table with dice and paper. We watched this group go from confidently firing arrows and executing military retreats to plunging into a freezing pit to face the undead corpse of a loved one.
A huge pivot.
We saw them abandon all tactical advantages the moment they heard a cry for help, transitioning instantly from calculated combatants to desperate rescuers, and all culminated in a panicked scramble to barricade a crypt, heavily burdened by a heartbreaking rescue and a devastating lie.
A lie that, in the context of an ongoing narrative, will inevitably act as a ticking time bomb.
Oh, absolutely.
The truth about Phandalin will come out, and the consequences of Threshtog's choice to absorb that trauma will have to be dealt with.
And that is the exact thought I want to leave you with today. We often think of bravery in these stories as swinging a sword or charging into battle. But think about Threshtog. Was the heaviest burden he carried today his weapons, or the secret he now has to keep from the family he just saved?
Yeah.
Think about the lies we tell to protect the people we care about, and what that costs the person telling the lie. The blueprint of strategy is always clean and mathematical. But reality, especially the reality of the human heart, is incredibly beautifully messy. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll see you next time.